Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Curt Schilling Baseball Show, episode 65, 2023 postseason. And let's get right into it. Starting out in Baltimore, where Baltimore fans are probably not feeling all that good. Although I got to tell you, if you're an Orioles fan, yes, you're disappointed your season's over. And it was just such a promising thing to watch. And I don't think that should change. I think they were there a solid year early. I think if you had said to any Orioles fan in spring training, hey, you're going to be in the division series, they would have said, what? And that's what happened. But I can't help but wonder if the ending of game one didn't screw them, with Henderson getting thrown out on a relayed sign. I think he was on first with nobody out.
Right.
Who knows? Given their season, who knows? That could have changed things, but they didn't have the pitching to do it. They have the pitching, but they didn't have the experienced pitching to do it. Grayson Rodriguez struggled big time. Dean Creamer in game three, I think they went 1
2/3.
Well, yeah, 3 1/3 combined.
Yeah.
Which is just horrible. They were down 9-2 after 3 and 6-0 after 2. They just didn't have it. And again, I think they were here, and it's not going to make you feel any better. They were here a year early, and the Rangers bats showed up, and the Orioles pitching did not. When you're feeling good and like your game one starter was solid, going 4 2/3 and giving up 2 earned runs, you're probably not ready for the postseason. Texas sweeps them 3-0. And now we have, based on the second series, when the Astros beat the Twins 3-1, the Rangers Astros are going to meet up in the ALCS, which is kind of cool. I thought the Twins would give them a better series. Verlander shuts them out over 6 in game one. He'll grab game one of the Rangers series. Javier and Urquidy both threw well. 10 2/3 combined, giving up 2 earned runs in games 3 and 4. But remember, a lot of times there are times when things kind of happen unexpectedly. Astros, I think, they made their playoff spot the last day of the season. And I'm not sure anybody had their game face on for the postseason because they couldn't get ready for it because they weren't in it. Now all of a sudden they're in it, and they dominated Texas during the season. I don't know that matters all that much because those numbers, well, that matters if the players let it matter, and I don't think most of them will. They won 7 of the last 8 against Texas. They were 9-4 against Texas on the season. But again, I don't know that really matters. I'm very curious to see how the whole Scherzer thing plays out. Because he's a difference maker if he's healthy and throwing well. And I would imagine, given his layoff, that he would get game one if that's the plan, which means, hello, baseball fans, Scherzer Verlander game one. That could be fun. So you've got Texas and Houston. Kind of hard to see Texas getting beat, only because their lineup is so good right now.
And so deep, Curt.
Yeah, you've got Alvarez and you've got Gurriel, Abreu for Houston, who both kind of carried them through the series at different times. But the Rangers lineup top to bottom carried them, and that you don't usually see that in October. But I'll be curious to see. I still think whoever gets the most quality innings out of their starting pitching is going to win that series. And then we move on. And we said this early in the year, right? I think in spring training, we talked about the possibility of 4 AL East teams making the playoffs, and it ended up being 3. And they went a combined 0-7. No real explanation for that. And these are short series, and best of 3s and best of 5s can be over in 3 days, 2 days, 3 days. And, they didn't have it. The Blue Jays needed Gausman in game one. He walked 5. and they never got back. The Blue Jay offense, I think, was kind of a paper tiger in many ways, but I also don't want to downplay the pitching that they faced and the fact that well, the teams that are pitching, it's what we talked about, right? The teams, I've said it all year, the swing and miss pitching tends to dominate in October, although there are some exceptions, and we'll get to it in a moment. The Dodgers in their 11th division pennant.
They've been in the playoffs 11 straight years.
Straight postseason appearances, 10 of them as division champs. They won 3 pennants and have 1 World Series. Screams of the 90 Braves, the 1990s Atlanta Braves. Kershaw struggled, and that was huge. And then I think they faced a team that feels like they're a team of destiny. And I've been in a clubhouse where you feel that way. And it's just a very different feeling. You show up at the park, you're not really worried about who's pitching or who you're playing. You're just worried about your job. And in the postseason, that can be a huge plus. And Diamondbacks are 5-0 in the postseason. They got Gallen and Carroll to go 1-2 in the NLCS, depending on who they pick up and who they face. And the message that I got last night was scary for me. If you remember a couple of years back when the Rays were in the World Series and Cash pulled Blake Snell throwing a shutout, I think in the 7th inning of a World Series game, simply because the sabermetrics data told him to do that, and they ended up losing that game and losing the World Series. I think that's going to happen again this year. And the team that it could happen to is Arizona, because I watched Brendan Pfaadt last night. I think he was at 42 pitches in the 5th inning. And he'd gone 4 1/3 scoreless, gave up a single. Torey Lovullo couldn't wait to get out of the dugout. He had 2 arms in the bullpen going in a game when they had a lead, and he had been shutting them out. And it was almost like every out was the answer to a prayer when Pfaadt was out there. And remember, he pitched game 1 of their postseason, and they came back and won that game. And we talked about what a mismatch that was. But I mean, watching that game last night, I think you're going to possibly see it happen again this year. You're going to see a team lose a series because of the angst that these managers have with certain starting pitchers, pulling them before they should be pulled, pulling them when the sabermetrics might tell them to, but the game doesn't. And that game last night didn't. This kid was pitching fine, getting a lot of swings and misses, mixing his stuff up, and I guess they felt 4 1/3 was as far as they could get him.
And he had a 4-run lead after the 4 home runs in the 3rd.
Well, it's 4-0, and he's got 42 pitches.
Right.
Like, okay.
Didn't get that.
That's over managing. That's they won, but who's to say he wouldn't have gone 9 scoreless the way he was throwing? So the game 1 of the NLCS is today's Friday. Game 1 is 3 days from now, so the Diamondbacks will be well rested, and those rests at this point aren't a bad thing. And the Dodgers losing, I don't have an answer. They didn't pitch. Their offense got shut down by good pitching. Excuse me, but they didn't pitch. They needed Kershaw. And with all the stuff with Urias going on and their injuries late in the year, Lance Lynn, God bless him, I love him to death. Just a straight 4-seam fastball pitcher who gives you innings and starts and all the things that go with that. That doesn't translate a lot of times in October if you're not commanding the ball perfectly, and he wasn't. So,
and Bobby Miller pitched like he was a kid.
Right. Like you'd expect a kid to pitch in the playoffs.
Right.
But, again, so the Diamondbacks, the Orioles, the Rays, the Blue Jays, looking at their short postseasons, the Twins, I don't know if there's a lot you do. Like I said, I think with the Orioles, it's a matter of, hey, we were here early. Let's just count this as great experience. Take this team into next year. The Orioles are set up to be the Dodgers for the next 10 years from a talent perspective. They can run that division as long as ownership doesn't screw it up. And that's a huge if.
Well, John Means comes back next year.
Right.
He was healthy the end of this year, but next year he'll be up and ready to go.
Right, but they need to start putting ink to paper with Radley Rushman and some
Right.
other kids and do it. If you know, because you've already heard Angelo set the table, right? Oh,
Yeah.
we might not be able to sign all these kids, blah, 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 which is setting them, setting themselves up to let that happen when you can't. You have to get these guys signed, get them to a deal that you might be spending more money up front, but you're saving a lot more money on the back end, especially given the way contracts are going and the fact that Adley Rushman is kind of a unicorn in the sense that he's all the things you need in a base. He's a team leader on and off the field. He's an all-star catcher. He's a Hall of Fame caliber player. He is the anti-Curt Schilling. He keeps his mouth shut and he goes about his job and does it really, really well. Gunnar Henderson too. There's a lot, and they have so much young talent. And maybe the best prospect in baseball didn't see the big leagues this year for many at bats and Holiday. And then I Rodriguez, hey, learning lesson. My guess is that given his makeup and what he is, he'll take this and will improve on it next year and be ready for that game one start that he gets in October next year.
Well, the second half of this year proved he's capable of it. So
right now
take the experience.
He's an ace. He's the number one, and he's the number one. He's a play-in pitching. He's a play-in game pitcher. He's all that, your game one starter. He just needs innings. Most pitchers, again, going back to my era, most pitchers in my era are still in the minor leagues with the number of innings he has. He's pitching in a winner go home game or a playoff game already. So let's go out to what is turning out to be everybody's favorite series in Philadelphia. And I'm just going to say right now, there's a stat here that Philadelphia's 25-11 record at Citizens Bank, which made its debut in 2007, the best all-time win percentage for a minimum of 20 games. Home field in baseball is real. I think it's real in hockey. I think it's real in baseball. I think it's real in football to some extent, to a large extent. But baseball, it sneaks in there, and it is a big deal. You think about Trey Turner early in the year and the stuff that happened with the standing ovation and his season after that. It can make a difference, and I think it's making a difference in Philadelphia. And the energy in Philadelphia is just different. It's a physical, viral, like you can touch it and feel it kind of energy, and they're making themselves known, and that's fun to watch. And so let's talk about Bryce Harper, who I think I said this. Bryce Harper was built for this. This is what his whole life has been gearing towards the October, and he's proved it already. He now has the most home runs in division series history, which, remember, the division series is kind of a newer thing from a postseason perspective. Seventh Philly ever with multi home run games in the postseason, joining Worth, Utley, Hoskins, Howard, Burrell, and Dykstra. But both of them were bombed. The first one was a moonshot. And apparently, well, I'm not going to say apparently or allegedly. I'm not the mainstream media. He was staring at Orlando Arcia around the bases both times. I liked how Arcia put his head down the first time to fix his glove, so he didn't have to see it. But he made sure the second time he did. And this all comes from, if you haven't heard, Arcia was commenting like every player in the game does in their own clubhouse about players on the other team talking trash, which is what we do. And I guarantee you it was said in a laughing manner or whatever it was said. And it got over to Harper. And I think the comment Harper says, somebody asked him about, did you enjoy looking him down? He said, well, I enjoyed it so much I did it a second time. So of course I did. But I'm going to tell you, I know how it got over there. I don't think a player on the Braves team would have told Bryce Harper by any stretch. And I don't think any players on the Braves would have told anybody else by any stretch. However, I do know the clubhouse guys in Philadelphia. And I guarantee you, and God bless them for it, that's how it got across the clubhouses. Because that's not stuff you'd say that anybody else is supposed to hear. But the clubhouse guys, you got to remember, the clubhouse guys, home and road, are in for postseason shares. Visiting guys just as much. for full shares of the postseason, which now I'm going to guess is going to be in the neighborhood of $500,000 this year. So they want the Phillies to win. I know that in 04, we knew that the Yankees had mic'd the Red Sox clubhouse. And we found it accidentally. But teams do all kinds of stuff like this. And I guarantee you, God bless you guys on the visiting side of the field for helping the boys win.
So Curt, he comes off getting picked off of first on the double play to end the game in game 2.
Right.
And then he comes back and hits 2 home runs. Was there any time in your career where you had a bad start and then in the next start just was like, I'm going to prove that to be wrong?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so in 93, I get beat in game 1 of the World Series by Guzman and the Blue Jays, arguably the best lineup I ever faced, and then come back in game 5, we're down 3-1, elimination. And I threw a 154-pitch complete game. But I always argued that's what happens to guys that understand October. You turn a mistake. He got picked off, and he tried. I think he read the ball correctly in a sense that ball probably should have been caught. He got doubled off, and that's how you make up for it. You go out and win the next game. And as opposed to Gunnar Henderson, who gets thrown out, and again, probably not his fault because the signs were missed, but you find a way to come back the next day and make up for it instead of kind of squeezing the trigger or having your butt be a little tighter the next day. You look for an opportunity to make a difference, and you do it in October. And that's not a small thing, but they're taking advantage of home field advantage in a big way. And I think it's going to be very, very tough. There's so much energy. And I would tell you that it's far more impactful on the starting pitchers pitching in that environment. What Wheeler punched out, the first 6 outs of the game?
Yeah.
He punched out 6. The energy in that stadium, holy crap, was is going to be well earned, and it's going to be tough to win there. It's going to be tough as a visiting team to win there because you're going to be playing and fighting a team that feels good about themselves, but isn't playing in front of a crowd that's going to give them April strength and freshness in October. And there's an advantage to that, big advantage to that. So, obviously we're taping this before the Phillies play. I fully expect them to advance. I said that if they beat Strider in game 1, that it was going to be, I think, very hard for Atlanta to win the series. And it's going to be very hard for Atlanta to win the series. Doesn't mean it can't, but I think it's going to be very hard for them to do that. So when we get back here on Tuesday, we'll be looking at both LCSs, and they will have kicked off. And I got to change my prediction now because my team is out. I'm still going with Philadelphia, but I got to go Texas, Philly now. Texas looks, and especially if Scherzer shows up and he's anything like himself, I would love to see a Scherzer Verlander game.
That would be phenomenal Sunday.
Yes.
If we got Verlander, Scherzer.
Right. And a Scherzer with no excuses. That would be even more enjoyable because that could be a Schmaltz, Jack Morris game 7 kind of thing. Both your horses getting you deep into the game. So that'll be exciting. But we'll look at both the LCSs on Tuesday. I'm going to go Texas, Philly now. I think Philly's going to be hard to stop. And then I'm going to have to go with Philly to win it all because I think things are going well. I don't mean to dismiss Arizona, and I'm not. I just think that there's going to be an issue with the overmanagement of that pitching staff, and I think it's going to come to fruition in the playoffs. I hope it doesn't, because I'd like to see an Arizona-Philadelphia 7-game LCS because I think it'd be a blast. I think the world gets to see Corbin Carroll and deserves to see him, as well as in October Bryce Harper. I think Nola and Wheeler have a chance to be special. Gallen and Kelly. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun, whatever it is. I think it's going to be a great series. I'd be stunned if it didn't go 6 games, regardless of who ends up getting there. So Rangers, Astros. So 3, Baltimore screwed it up. It was almost going to be all 4 teams that I played for in the league championship series, which would have been cool. Houston is, Arizona and Philadelphia are, and Baltimore kind of let us down. But again, if you're a Baltimore fan, you can be upset this week, and that's fine. But just know that that team's in it for the long haul. Deeply, deeply talented. You could make an argument that losing Bautista was such an enormous blow, and it was. But Arizona proved that you can take a bullpen that's an Achilles heel and turn it into, a reason you win in October if you got the right makeup and you got the right guys. And they clearly, their bullpen has turned into a force. So we'll be back.
I will tell you that from a fan standpoint, I always like the semifinals more than the finals in all sports, but especially baseball. The league championship series where you go back-to-back nights with games, it's just a different feel. Once you get down to the finals, it's the finals and it's great. But I
gotta
love
tell
the
you,
LCS.
as a player, there was some of that, in the sense that when you get to the World Series, obviously you want to win, but win or lose, you're in the World Series. The league championship series, our World Series in 2004 when Boston won, our World Series was the Yankee series, not the Cardinals series. We swept the Cardinals 4-0. The Yankee series was our World Series. That was the ghost of Christmas past in many ways, because it was the Yankees, because we were down 3-0, and because we hadn't been, we're not in the World Series yet. And I think that there's some of that to guys that have been in the postseason and gone back and forth. I think they understand that, right? You get to the World Series, things can happen. Joe Carter can happen, right? But you're in the World Series. And either way, you're league champion. You don't get there, I don't think you've done anything. You've gotten to the postseason, but you haven't gotten to the World Series. So I think there's some merit to that on both sides of the coin, fans and players. So we'll be back on Tuesday to catch you guys up on the LCS. It should be a great weekend of baseball. I'm saying Arizona, Philadelphia, Texas, Houston, with Texas and Philadelphia getting to the World Series. So that's my pick. And I'm going to say the same thing about Arizona next week if they don't make it. As an Arizona fan, you should be ecstatic. They're here early. They weren't expected to be here this year by any stretch. That doesn't make it okay if they lose. I get that, but they're here a year early. They're talented. They're going to be around. They've got a guy who might end up being the best player in the game, which is saying something these days, given it's his first year. But he's everything he's purported to be and more. He hasn't changed a gear in October. He's just kicked it up, which for a young player is pretty amazing. So, yeah, we'll be back on Tuesday. Anywhere you guys get your podcast, Apple, Spotify. We'd love you to go to OutKick and grab it. You can find the Curt Schilling Baseball Show. We'll be back. Bill, you have a wonderful weekend watching baseball, and hockey kicked off this week too, guys. So it's a lot of fun. Sports are a lot of fun right now. So have a great weekend.